Sudanese novel History and Development الطيب صالح 1929-2009 Bandarshah Part 2. Our discussion today is part of the ongoing documentary series on the world-renowned Sudanese writer طيب صالح, as we continue to explore his remarkable novel Bandarshah in its second part. I'm so happy to welcome you, dear audience, to this episode, in which we focus on several influential characters in the unfolding narrative, continuing from where we left off in the first episode. It is evident that the transformations of the characters undergo are not merely narrative developments, especially since many of them were already introduced in the wedding of Zayn. Through this continuity, طيب صالح emphasizes that the wheel of life knows no permanence. Change is not accidental, but an essential feature of existence. Nothing remains the same, and every moment carries the potential for renewal and transformation. Life is not stagnant. It is a constant motion that challenges permanence and compels every being to adapt or change. The past never repeats itself exactly. The present always opens new horizons, and the future holds surprises beyond our control. This inevitability of change reminds us that renewal is an inseparable part of the philosophy of life, and that every character in the novel, no matter how fixed they may seem at first, is always on a journey of transformation and growth. So, the audience, it is my great pleasure once again welcoming you to this new episode. We are here with طيب صالح in our second encounter with him, focusing on introducing his masterpiece novel Bandarshah. So we finished the first part, and now here I would like to share parts of part of the novel literary elements. I'm trying here to focus further on the characters, putting in mind that some of those characters already we have met when we introduces his novel The Wedding of Zayn. طيب صالح, by the way, went on, and some of the characters continue with him in his literary writings. For example, if you have taken Wedding of Zayn, we find many of the important characters that have been appeared in Wedding of Zayn. Furthermore, also they have their own exposition on Bandarshah. So in this episode, I try to follow this this evolution process that have taken place and have been designed by the writer himself. In this concern, here we are living with the experience of character development, putting in consideration that the development of characters in the novel have the same process and feature that we come across in our daily life. For the character has his own psychological development, physical development, intellectual development, cultural, educational, emotional development. All of these development, by the way, is part of the character personality. Whether it is part of the personality generally, if you have taken the person himself outside the literary text or outside novel or short story, we find there are some sort of development that always used to take place. So the same thing here we have with our novelist Tayyib Saleh in his novel Bandarshah. In Bandarshah, we have the process of character evolution, and here this is just the idea behind introducing this episode. Among these characters that I would like to share is الطريفي والدلبكري. So الطريفي والدلبكري, as we have encountered him, Tayyib Saleh novel, The Wedding of Zain, unlike the one that we are experiencing him in Bandarshah. So I would like to tell الطريفي والدلبكري, as the narrator confirms, was 12 years old in the year of the wedding of Zain. In Bandarshah, he has become 36 or 37. In the wedding of Zain, At-Turefi was no more than a small child with no real role. But time passes, cycles turn, and At-Turefi emerges as an advocate of the change in what Hamid. To quote the writer, the world must move forward, not backward. Thus, Turefi assumes the banner of transformation and convenes the first General Assembly of the Cooperative Society 30 years after its founding, with the aim of dislodging Mahjoub and his faction. So Tayyib Saleh in this particular context, Bandarshah, At-Turefi والدلبكري is no longer that small child who brought the news of wedding of Zain to the headmaster, and at that moment he escaped the punishment from the headmaster. So just his role was there. We experienced him in Wedding of Zain that he transformed the Wedding of Zain news to the headmaster. And this news is so very essential, very important and significant for the headmaster himself. And because of this news, he escaped the punishment from the headmaster, for he came late to the school. So we have experienced him only in that moment, and then in Bandarshah we find another Turefi, another character with a full evolution in terms of his educational side. So he has been engaged, or he has been experienced dimensional evolution in terms of education, in terms of physical appearance. And because of this, and based on his education that he has taken, we found him that he and some other youths in the village of Hamid came to confront Mahjoub and his group, mainly to the presidency and running the cooperative society. Another character that has gone through transformation and evolution in terms of society status, socially, in terms of wealth, is Saeed al-Boom, as he has been used to be called. And Saeed al-Boom is no longer that individual, that character in Wedding of Zayn. Here in Bandarshah, he came to be known as Saeed Ash al-Baitat, so new birth for him. And Ash al-Baitat, it means an individual who gives supper to hungry girls. In other words, chivalrous and generous. This is a denotation, or this is a meaning of Ash al-Baitat in Sudanese local culture. And literature novel is no more than a reflection to the society or to the local culture. In our concern is Sudanese culture through the lens of the literary writing of Tayyib Saleh. So in Wedding of Zayn, he had been the assistant of the headmaster, doing all the odd jobs for him. Every time he was paid, he had the amount lodged and gave the money to the headmaster to keep. This went on for 10 years. Once the headmaster retired, Said struck. He demanded all his money back, knowing full well the headmaster did not have the money. In return, Said demanded the headmaster's daughter as his wife. At first, he was refused, but in the end, the headmaster had no choice but to accept. The Wedding of Zayn, his presence is faint, his influence limited, yet in Bandarshah, Saleh expands and develops the character, elevating him to a position markedly different from the one he previously occupied. Saleh's choice of this character was far from arbitrary. Rather, it was deliberate and artistically motivated, reflecting a conscious narrative design. In the Wedding of Zayn, Said can hardly be considered a character in the conventional sense. He is little more than a moving presence within the novel fictional world, one of the background figures tasked with filling the narrative space. Said is not merely one of what Hamid's poor. He belongs to the lowest social stratum among them. He works as a servant in wealthy households, particularly the home of the Nazir, who exploits him, sending him to fetch firewood and water, while Said sold firewood, served in houses, and saved his money with the Nazir. He is also a subject of mockery for Mahjoub and his companions during their ideal hours, largely because of his marriage. He does not touch his wife and lives with her in a state close to estrangement or near dissolution. Dissolution, as the narrator suggests. He regards her almost as a corpse, since she neither perfumes herself nor adorns herself like other women. When she dares to speak back to him, he slaps her and says, "Go take lessons from the Nazir's daughters." In Bandarshah, Said transcends his former status as a mere narrative presence to emerge as a fully realized character. He comes to signify with striking clarity the condition of change and transformation that has overtaken Hamid, just as it has overtaken him. This transformation manifests itself across several dimensions of his life, reflecting both personal evolution and the broader social shifts unfolding within the village. In terms of occupation, Said abandons his former work as a field laborer and firewood seller and takes up two new professions. This, together with the change of his name, enable him to erase the old image once associated with him. From the standpoint of social standing, Said undergoes a striking transformation, becoming one of those figures to whom attention is naturally drawn. He now sits as an equal interlocutor alongside Mahjoub, حميد, طريفي, عبد الحفيظ, طاهر الراسي, سعيد القانوني, and the Nazir. The very men who once dismissed him as the filthy and fool. More significantly, Said comes to challenge the Nazir in matters of lineage and prestige, asserting his identity with unmistakable pride as he marries the Nazir's daughter. I'm presenting Said Al-Boom, who changed completely and evolved to a position that he became one of the significant figures in the village following his new birth. So now, just here, we're experiencing him while he was in debate with the headmaster Al-Nazir. Listen carefully. I am Said وزايد وتحسب الرسول, a pure Arab by God. My people are like dark clouds that can veil the sun. What am I? A Muslim, a believer in the one God. In this self-defining declaration, Said begins with I. It is the language of selfhood, force, and symbolic authority. Through the cultural logic of genealogy and lineage, he situates himself within the Arab tribal framework that traditionally privileges ancestry as a measure of worth, a framework that often views others through a hierarchical lens, yet Said simultaneously anchors his identity in Islam, invoking a religious ethos that, at least in principle, negates such distinctions before God. All stand equal, differentiated only by piety and righteousness. Embracing the mechanism of this new social order, Said stages a wedding so grand that, as the narrator remarks, it made the people forget the wedding itself. The celebration becomes a symbolic proclamation of arrival, wealth, and legitimacy. Financially, Said rises to become one of Wad Hamid's wealthiest men. His prosperity is attributed by the narrator to two causes. The first is realistic and grounded in lived experience. Decades for relentless labor in the fields, in service, and in the unimpeded trade. This is subtly underscored when Said interprets his own storytelling to say with practical urgency, I must go catch the market. The matter of money can wait for another time. The remark is revealing. A man who respects time and the sources of livelihood inevitably embodied the discipline associated with success. Said's financial history reinforces this image. He begins by accumulating modest sums carefully recorded and entrusted year after year For more than 7 years, I worked like a donkey. Whenever I gathered 5 coins, or 10s, or 20 pounds, I would have them written down in the ledger and deposit them with another. Here, Said appears methodical, financially literate, and accurately aware of the importance of documentation, writing as protection, calculation as survival. The second cause of his wealth belongs to the realm of myth. Said recounts a visionary episode shaped by winter's austerity, the dreams of the poor, and the authority of saintly prophecy. In this dreamlike encounter, Al-Hanin, the saintly figure whose blessing permeates the narrative universe of the wedding of Zain, directs him toward a mysterious palace, the palace of Bandarshah. There, he is instructed to retrieve the trust as a sacred inheritance, rightfully belonging not only to him, but to the weak and dispossessed. The imagery fuses spiritual legitimacy with material reward. I opened the bundle and found shapes and colors like the treasures of Solomon. In this way, Salih masterfully entwines realism and legend, whilst wealth is both and unordained, both economic and metaphysical. These cumulative transformations elevate Said into the narrative's new axis of power. He becomes, as the narrative suggests, the pivot around which the village balance shifts, the driving force behind the peaceful reconfiguration of authority that displaces Mahjub faction. His invitation to attend the dawn prayer, followed by communal hospitality, signals more than a generosity. It makes the ceremonial inauguration of a new order. What do you say we all rise for the dawn prayer? Today is Friday. After all, you are all my guests for breakfast. Transformation ultimately culminates in the narrator's proclamation of the new epoch. Now, sir, we are living in the era of Said Ash al-Baitat. This newly declared era stands in deliberate parallel and tension with the multiple symbolic epochs that structure Salih's fictional world: the age of Mahjub, the place-time of Al-Hanin, the joyous season of Zain, the mythic dominion of Bandarshah, and the enigmatic rapture of Dawal Bayt. Such layering is central to Salih's artistic design. His fictional universe resists a linear progression, favoring instead a circular, overlapping temporality in which social, historical, and mythical orders coexist, collide, and endlessly interpret one another. Any reading of Said's era, whether as renewal, ionic, critique, or continuation, remains valid, for the sanity of Salih's narrative world accommodates all these possibilities and more. So what I would like to let's say in this particular context, we are experiencing the evolution, the development of this important character as part of Bandarshah. By the way, here we may come to interpret and understand, we come to interpret and understand this type of evolution and development to be taken in form of countries' development and evolution in the very sense of the meaning of the word. For as we have taken Said here, we found him as a person of no significance, a person who possesses very low profile social presence among what Hamid villagers. We found him, and as a result of his striving and working day by day, we found him that his situation has been changed. But Tayyib Saleh has taken two sides to inform about the evolution and the development of this character. He informed us that he is so very a person that respect time in terms of he always finishing his work with the headmaster and Nazir. We found him going to collect firewood so as to buy to the villagers, and we find him further working in the homes, working in the fields, so on and so forth. So this process, by the way, indicates that we have to strive as human, and the image may be applicable even to countries, and countries here have to take change as a result of the motion, as a result of striving to develop itself in terms of perceiving the time, looking to the time management so seriously. And this is just an example have been taken here as Tayyib Saleh tries to deliver. One of the characters who disappears only to re-emerge later is Abdul Hafiz. In Bandarshah, he appears as a man well past 70, steadfast in attending the congregational prayers. Yet, in the wedding of Zain, he is portrayed as a young man in the prime of his life, gathering around the circle of light in Said's shop, loving like a child. Since the day Abdul Hafiz found his way to the mosque, he resigned from everything and washed his hands of it all. The death of his daughter in Bandarshah stands as the crushing blow that broke his back utterly, altering the course of his life. So another character experience some sort of evolution and development. This is the nature of life. Here we have Abdul Hafiz. Abdul Hafiz in Wedding of Zain, at the prime of his life, he is not a person that we may come to call religious. While by the passing of the time in Bandarshah, he became more religious. And this is just experience in life. Another character that Tayyib Saleh exposed and portrayed is Ibrahim wa Taha. So Ibrahim wa Taha only to introduce him suddenly, reviving the narrative with a striking line or a pivotal stance. In the wedding of Zayn, he is the leader of the eccentric faction aligned with the Imam. Despite his advanced age, he neither prays nor fasts nor gives alms nor even acknowledges the Imam existence. In Bandarshah, he is the one who declares, "O Wadarais, keep your distance from the men of beards and prayer pits. Nothing comes from behind them but trouble." He also served as the trusted narrator in Maryud, recounting the story of Bilal the Muazzin. So another character in our society that Ibrahim wa Taha, no change in terms of religion point of view. He remains the same as that one we met him in Wedding of Zayn. And in Wedding of Zayn, he has been exposed and portrayed as the poet. But at the very same time, he has no relation with congregation prayers. Neither he prays, nor fasts, nor give alms. And this type of character exists in our daily life. Wherever we go, we found such a person with such figure like him. As for Ahmad Ismail, who was the youngest member of the group in the Wedding of Zayn, the group of Mahjoub, or Mahjoub's group, he becomes in Bandarshah a father to so many daughters that their number overwhelms his very name, until he is identified and labeled by their presence. It is a disparaging title, one that lays bare the extent to which Sudanese society internalize a deeply rooted patriarchal outlook, elevating the male while casting the female into a position of dismissed worth. So in Sudanese culture, such a person, his real name, by the way, disappeared, while people come to call him Abu al-Banat, the father of the daughters. The Muazzin. Bilal the Muazzin, one of the most significant figures through whom Tayyib Saleh renders the unseen dimension and highlights the spiritual depth of Wad Hamid society. As the narrator observes in Maryud, it was said that his earliest companionship with Sheikh Nasrallah Wad Habib began when he was a youth, somewhere between 15 and 20. Perhaps he would wander deep into the wilderness, absorbed in devotion, God alone knows, for he was scarcely perceptible in the village, as though he were not there at all. Lots of figures in Saleh fiction universe typically inhabit states of withdrawal and seclusion. The narrator describes the character of Bilal as follows. Those who saw him say that he had a beautiful face, a pleasing appearance, neither tall nor short. His complexion glowed like musk, and one could not gaze upon him for long without being captivated by the beauty of his features. This description resonates with the praise of the Prophet and the depictions of the righteous saints. Indeed, Bilal, at the events of the novel make clear, was one of them. When they stopped to pray, they saw Bilal wrapped in a shroud, and the mosque was filled with many people from both the town and beyond. It was a wondrous sight. He recited Surah Al-Duha with a joyful voice, and the verses appeared fresh and radiant, like clusters of grapes. After the prayer, he turned to them with a glowing, happy face, greeted them farewell, and requested that they not carry him on a pair, but on their shoulders, and that they bury him beside his Sheikh Nasrallah wa Habib, leaving a distance between him and the Sheikh in accordance with the rules of respect and veneration. He then stretched himself on the ground by the mihrab, testified, providing and given shahada, and sought forgiveness, while the people watched in awe and wonder. Then he raised his hand as if shaking hands with someone and surrendered his soul to his creator. They carried him from the spot in the mosque to the cemetery, and it was said that those who followed his funeral procession felt as though the earth itself parted for them. He was buried facing the sunrise. According to what they recounted, a solemn man led the prayer over him, whose face none had seen, but most said he resembled Sheikh Nasrallah wa Habib. It was told that no man who witnessed Bilal's death failed to wish that his own soul would depart at that very hour. For Bilal made the taste of death in their mouths as sweet as the honey. Life, O Muhammad, holds nothing but two things, friendship and love. Don't speak to me of lineage, wealth, prestige, or status. If a man leaves the world and has the trust of a single person, he has gained an eye. And by God Almighty, I have been blessed with marvelous favors. In place of one blessing, I have been given two, the friendship of Mahjub and the love of Fatima, daughter of Jabradar. Such were Bilal's words to Muhammad. And Bilal has been portrayed in the novel as a devout disciple to the pool, Sheikh Nasrallah wa Habib, as he called him. He called him the pool and the guide. So one day he addressed him, "You are the pool, the qutb, you are the master of the age, and I am your servant, a musician." So as you listen, the audience, Taif Saleh, he is celebrated Sufism, and this is the language of Sufism as you listen. Nothing embodies the ideology of the novel more than the character of Bilal. With the story of this unique soul, Saleh presents his perspective on the social impact of applying Sufi epistemology. Although Bilal has been portrayed in the novel as a slave, he is given a higher rank than any other character in the novel. This ranking is based purely on righteousness and sainthood, has nothing to do with all the positions and materialistic ends. He is the son of no God but God, who is at the same time descended from a line of ancient kings. And here I would like to quote him and to finish the episode. Sheikh Nasrallah with Habib, who tells him, "You are the slave of God, just as I am the slave of God. We are brothers in the sight of God. You and I are specks of dust in the kingdom of God." He further told him, Sheikh Nasrallah, his master, told him and addressed him one day and said, on the judgment day, it is possible that your scale will outweigh mine in the balances of truth. My scale outweighs yours in the balances of the people of the world, but your scale, O Bilal, will outweigh mine in the balance of justice. I, Bilal, run like a thirsty camel in order to attain a drop from the cup of the presence, while you, Bilal, have drunk to the full. And in fact, this is the message of Islam. This is the message of Tasawwuf. There is no preference, only with the piety and devotion to God, sincere devotion to God. No social ranks that prefer and that put consideration to wealth, to the materialistic, to materialism. It is not the criteria for judging the person, the best one among the bad one. Only righteousness. And in the day of judgment, nothing benefit the human, only the good deeds. No color, no race, no social status, only righteousness, and only the living with the proclamation of the word of testimony. There is no God but God, and Muhammad is the messenger of God. So the audience, we experience together the evolution, the development of some characters that we have met in Wedding of Zen, and now we have another presence to them in Bandarshah. And what is striking and what so influential among those characters that have experienced the real evolution, where Saeed al-Boom, who transformed and changed to be known as Saeed Ash al-Baitad, and I took him to represent a state, a nation, a country that running state of progress and development and evolution in all angles and corners of development. So Saida, the phenomenon, a man of no position, a man of no high position among the villagers in Wad Hamid, a man of no significance, a source of mockery to those significant personalities that used to run the village. Suddenly we found him, and based on his striving in the life, based on his respect to time, we found him at the end of the story that he transformed into another character, and we experience him as a man of high status in the village, that a person is respected. Not only this, but he knocked the door of the influential figures in the past times, such as the headmaster. So we experience these changes, by the way, and In other words, we have to apply it to the situations of nations, to the situation of countries, to the situation of states that gone through process, either from backward to progressiveness or from progressiveness to backward. And before to wrap up the episode, I would like to point out the sources that already I have consulted. An analytical summary, comprehensive analytical summary to the novel of ضوء البيت by طيب صالح. You find this in the website. The mini or the petty encyclopedia have been published on 7th of July 2025, and then we have Ahmad As-Siddiq Al-Muhami, and here we have his research, his article by the way. الأثر الصوفي رواية طيب صالح عرس الزين مريود بندرشاه, published article on Sudan Nile 16 of November 2018. And then we have Nabil Hamdi, his study and research paper بنية الانسياب السردي في رواية طيب صالح عرس الزين بندرشاه مريود, published paper on the journal جيل 2016 قيم العقيدة والروح في قصة طيب صالح by the writer researcher الطريف عبد الله, published article on Sudan Nile on 20 of July 2012. By this, the audience, I came to the end of the episode. Till seeing you in another episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.